The ANC has argued that the minerals sector must be placed at the heart of South Africa's development strategy because it is the country's only natural resource sector that can be regarded as exceptional in global terms. The nature of the ANC's intervention in the sector is being debated at the ANC Policy Conference in Midrand this week. Joining us in studio to discuss what implications this may have on the sector and the economy is Claude Baissac. He's the director at Eunomix. Thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, we are hoping that you are going to unpack the scenario for us, and I know David and Bruce have a number of burning questions on the issue.
I'm sure they do. I can see that already. Yes, it's very interesting. Thanks to be here. What's interesting to look at is the fact that 20 years almost into the post-apartheid regime, it seems that we still don't have a consensus on which direction to give the economy of this country. And the notion that we are going to place some sort of mineral energy complex at the center of the economy is very promising, and I think logical to some extent. But the reality is that we don't necessarily have a comparative advantage in doing the kind of policies that the government or the ANC wants to do, simply because we have minerals in our soil. And I think there is some confusion in relation to what would consider comparative advantage at this point in both the ANC and government. So what we look forward to see is some sort of signal that in fact we are going to go back to basics and do our basics well, which is the ability to exploit the mineral resource we have in our soil and produce those minerals in a cost competitive way, export them where they need to export, beneficiate them where we have the resources, energy, labor, transport, and the right policy environment to be able to export and manufacture whatever we can manufacture. And then rely in some industries on importing the mineral itself, transforming it in South Africa and shipping it. This is the way the model economy works. Things are not necessarily based on the natural advantage you would have. Otherwise China would not be manufacturing some of the products that they do using our minerals.
David, where are you going with this?
No, I understand exactly where Claude is, because what concerns me about the whole concept, when you say we're not the lowest cost producers, if you look at our exports, it's platinum number one, our mineral exports, platinum number one, coal number two, gold number three. Now, certainly gold and platinum, we're battling. We're battling in those industries. We're not producing at the lowest cost. Yeah. I mean, you know what's happening. I think 43% of our platinum producers now, or the platinum production, is actually underwater. So how can we have a policy like this? Why don't we concentrate on actually
saving the businesses,
saving those businesses
rather
so
than
that
they can generate money going forward?
No, absolutely. I think one has to be sympathetic with the position of the ANC and government in the fact that we have to find a way to make sure that our industry is used and leveraged to create more economic development at the national and local level. The question is, are the policies that are proposed the right way to go about it? Are the policies proposed in the Sims report the right way to go about it? Well, some of them are good ideas and some are certainly interesting, but others are probably not very productive. And one of the key issues I think that investors have with the plan is that it relies on the state in increasing fashion to deliver a massive amount of policy when we know that the state is struggling with doing its own fundamentals, educating the children, keeping communities safe from crime, delivering basic infrastructure, at the community levels and in municipalities. And so the question that I encounter a lot when I go overseas is, does the South African state have the capacity to do what it's doing plus what it wants to do? And frankly, one has to take a fairly cautious position on this. The evidence that it doesn't have the capacity, that certain compromises and decisions have been made historically, which are biting back the ability of government to deliver.
Bronwyn, if you just look, if you look at gold, I mean, the beneficiation of gold, yes, we still produce a few hundred tons. How are we going to compete with, I don't know who, the Italians, the Indians who make chains or jewelry, or how can we suddenly bring in an industry like that that's going to compete with these people who've been doing it, number one, mechanically, or even over centuries have been the goldsmiths and various other talented people?
Well, one of the examples that I take very often to show what comparative advantage is all about is Mauritius. Mauritius, tiny little island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, 1.1 million people, has one of the world's most advanced garment industries, specifically around knitwears. And I think at some point, one of their companies was the second largest producer of knitwear in the world. Where are the cotton fields of Mauritius?
Well, there you go. We can create industries. You're saying take the leap of faith, and we can create these industries and beneficiate in South Africa.
You know, there is an opportunity now, which is the SEZ policy that the DTI has been putting forward. You know, one of the questions that I have in my mind is, why not try to do something innovative in relation to that? Not necessarily focused on exploiting our so-called natural advantage and natural endowment, but using our real comparative advantages in industries which have perhaps nothing to do with our natural endowment and everything to do with our geographic position, our competitiveness in certain sectors, in the automotive sectors, for instance. And let's do things there in an investment climate that really tells the world South Africa is open for business. Because I think there are real questions right now about that. Despite the fact that we've joined the BRICS, there are some questions as to what is South Africa wanting to do, where does it want to go, and how is it going to be performing over the next 5 years, when we need 5, 6, 7% growth, and it's difficult to see how we're going to produce that growth.
Bruce, we've left you speechless this evening.
You know, again, it comes down to, if we look at successful countries in the world, they're organs of state that create an environment for private industry to thrive. And I think that is the most important. Now, unfortunately, if we look at our state infrastructure, so if we look at Eskom, you know, as much as we're talking about Medupi coming online, you know, what we've also got to remember is that new capacity. We've got old capacity that's ultimately going to be mothballed shortly. So we've got old capacity that's coming offline. So how much are we growing our electricity grid, number one? Number two, no economy in world history has ever grown without a growing electricity supply. So that's a constraint in itself. So what industries can South Africa thrive in where actually benefication of mining, maybe we've missed the mark entirely. And I think if we look at what the world's going to need into the future, agriculture's got to be one that's extremely important. South Africa is well positioned to be able to support agricultural infrastructure and exports. Well, let me tell you, half my client base are farmers. Now, all I can tell you is we're talking about some little towns in the middle of the Free State that they are lobbying for the municipality to actually ditch tar roads and go back to dirt because it's damaging their equipment so badly. So, you know, here we're getting infrastructural problems that are constraining agriculture. I think agriculture, you look at Tongaat Hewlett, one of the few companies that I feel is positioning itself very cleverly, is A, bringing labor back in heavily. It's creating an environment where there is an entrepreneur. Now take a business model like that and extrapolate it, drive it into KwaZulu-Natal, those sort of areas. That's what we should be doing. And that, as I said, maybe that's a small start. Maybe that brings extra capacity that assists Transnet.
I can see that we now need an hour for this debate. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we don't have any more time on this one. But Claude, thanks very much for sharing your insights. Claude Baissac is a director at Eunomix. We head into a short break. More business tonight, right after this.